It's late, but I had some thoughts I wanted to share about finishing what you start. Finishing what you start. And I wanted to talk about this really quickly. Hopefully, it's really quickly because I was listening to a sermon by Bishop Bronner, and he was talking about how we often lack patience and consistency in order to finish something and get something done. We lack that. And so I thought to myself, that's so true because even for my own life, patience is something I'm just now having to wrestle with, and it doesn't really come naturally to me. I'm a very impatient person, which can really not work to my benefit. Like, it really goes against me in so many things. And then I heard a little clip by Jordan Peterson. He was talking about how if you go into a hoarder's house, you usually will see boxes of things everywhere and just mountains of objects and just so many things, right? And I thought to myself, he said, if you go into a hoarder's house, you would see those things, but the house is often a reflection of their mind and what's going on in their head. So this really hit me hard because about 7 weeks or so ago, my grandmother, she passed away. And after she passed, I was tasked with cleaning out her apartment. And when we initially found her, we had to get the paramedics to go in to get her out the apartment. And that was actually my first time setting foot in her apartment in years. She would, come to my sister's house for family dinner, and um, or she would meet me down in the lobby of her apartment building. So I never actually, it had been a while since I had been up to her actual apartment. And to see the state in which her apartment was, it was really, really overwhelming and shocking because I knew that she was a shopper. I knew that she liked to shop a lot, but I didn't really understand the magnitude of how much how much stuff she actually had in that apartment. I didn't really know. Like, it was to the point to where like you could not really maneuver around in there well at all, and it was overwhelming actually. And after she passed, it was having to go through, there were so many boxes, unopened boxes of things that we had to go through. And then there were packages, unopened packages, and then packages that continued to come even as she was in the hospital. There were more and more packages that continued to be delivered. And there were drawers and closets full of things. And even the boxes that were opened, there were still items brand new that you could tell that she didn't use. And oftentimes we would find a duplicate of something she had already purchased previously. So, and I hope I'm going to make sense of what I'm saying, but I'm going to try to tie it all in together, like tie it in together. But what Jordan Peterson said about a hoarder's house, and it's a reflection of their mind and what's going on inside of their head, with cleaning out my grandmother's home, it actually taught me that like initially in the moment, I found myself battling with all the emotions. It was the sadness and just the grief, but then it also was mixed in with anger, because after so many days of being in the apartment and going through box after box, every clothing item, and cleaning out so much stuff, it's like you come to the next box and you're like, what's in this? You come to the next package or drawer and it's like, okay, what's in this and why does she have this? And so I found myself in the moment getting irritated and mad, because I was like, how can one person have so much stuff? Like, how is this even possible? But after the moment is over and we've cleared out her space, and I've had, this time now, this 7 weeks or so, and I've just been kind of grieving and going through my emotions and trying to process. I understand like how much of a moment that was. It was a teaching moment for me, because several things I learned during that moment, and during that whole process, like with her being sick and all the way up into her passing and even cleaning out her space. It was so much. And it's not just finishing what you start. That is part of what I wanted to share, but well, let me just start there. Finishing what you start, because in her apartment, she had in those boxes, a lot of the boxes there were like DIY things for her apartment, things she wanted to put into use for her home that she never did. And it seemed as though and I want to say it seemed, because I can imagine if she was to tell me like, well, yeah, Nina, I bought this for this, or I bought this to do this. It was like I could hear her say, I meant to use this for this, or I meant to do this in the apartment, or that's why I bought this because I meant to. And so it's about finishing what you start to minimize the I meant to's, because she never either opened up the package to see what was in it, to actually use it. But then when she did open up the packages she didn't actually use what she purchased. So she was very on top of completing the purchase, but not completing the project. Even if it required help for her to do it, that's a whole other thing as well. But it's about getting started on what you planned. And so I just wanted to talk about this, because that moment taught me so much. And it's about, oftentimes it's like we have a vision of something, we plan for something, we want something to manifest in our life. Whether it's a business, a book, whatever it is, we want to manifest in our life. And it's oftentimes, especially for me, for those who are overthinkers, I get it. We tend to think about all the things we need to have, all the things we all the steps we have to take in order to have something completed, that we get stuck in analysis paralysis and we don't actually move. And we develop so much clutter in our brain to where we don't actually move with our bodies to make a decision. But then if that actually manifests in our environment, and there's so much clutter in our environment, then it actually becomes difficult to actually maneuver around. And so it's about clearing out the clutter so you can think clearly and move. And so that's what really is what I took, partially what I took from this whole experience. And just like 7 or 8 months prior to her passing, I had just started embracing my own minimalist journey. And it really like struck with me. I was listening to like Joshua Becker and the Ryan and the minimalist podcast with Joshua and Ryan. And I really love the whole concept of like having a much clearer space and only bringing things into your life that you will use and actually like bring you joy. And I actually really love that whole concept. So, and I had no idea that just months and months later down the line, my grandmother would be dying and I would have to clear out her space. I did not know. But with me going through my own work and my own personal journey, it made it so much more easier to deal with her stuff. And with clearing out her clutter, it taught me to have empathy and compassion. That was another lesson I learned was a to begin your project and begin, don't just complete the purchase, but start on the project so you can complete the project. And the second thing I learned was to have like empathy and compassion, because you never really know what somebody else is going through. And you, although how a person shows up on the outside and what they appear to be and how their personality appears to be, it can be quite deceptive. You never really know what somebody is going through internally and what their inner struggles are. You never really understand that. um and so we should be less, not as quick to judge people, because sometimes what you should be learning, I shouldn't say what you should be learning, but sometimes what we see in other people is often a mirror to something that we should be looking at within ourselves. And so it taught me that I once, and I'm still going through my process, but I once also had a hoarding issue. And so who am I to judge her? Who am I to really to judge her so harshly? I have no right to do that. And I've also dealt with bouts of depression as well. So, and oftentimes our environment will mimic and mirror what's going on in our brain, just as Jordan Peterson said. So it's like, who am I to judge about her space and what was going on? Because she couldn't let things go, and she just didn't get started on things, and she didn't complete things, and she just didn't, she couldn't decipher between what was worth keeping and what was worth letting go. And she had a hard time parting with things. And so who am I to really judge her for that? And so it's about just having more compassion for people, because oftentimes they are suffering in silence and they need help. They really do need help. And so, and even if they don't reach out for help, then they'll continue to suffer in silence. So we shouldn't really judge people because we don't really know what's going on with them. And so that was like my other lesson I learned. And as far as like being able to start in taking one step at a time, it's also something that moment of clearing out her space was teaching me, was because with opening up one box after the other and one package after the other, it was revealed to me that yes, she had the vision in her mind of what she wanted to use something for when she bought it. But after I came across a duplicate item that she had already previously purchased, it was kind of revealing to me that it's easy for us to get excited about starting something new and a vision for something that we have. But then we can get so easily distracted of something that we think is better, or just distracted. And so we move on to something else different. And then when that doesn't go how we planned or whatever, sometimes we come back to our original idea for something because it was never completed. And that's exactly what was starting to, what was revealed to me during that moment, was because she had an original idea for something. She didn't get started on it. She didn't even open the box. And so she abandoned that, and then she moved on to something else, and she made more purchases, and then I guess she came back to her original thought of that she needed something to do something, and then she repurchased something she needed. And it was like, has she opened up the first box and put it somewhere, or installed it, or had it installed, or whatever, then she could visibly look around and see she started this and it's in its proper place, you know. But and here's the thing: when I started to embrace my own minimalism journey, my original intent was to move and have less stuff to kind of. It was to help me out of my depression and things like that. But it was also with the frame of mind of like having less things to move out once I moved out of my apartment. But with me deciding not to move, I decided, let me just redo my space and kind of renovate my space here so that I'm happier in my environment. And so with that comes along purchasing things from Amazon, right? And as the packages started to trickle in, I started putting them in one corner. And I started to get anxiety with the packages sort of piling up, because I said to myself, this is giving me clutter vibes. It's giving me clutter, and it was starting to really cause me anxiety. Although I knew what I bought everything for, but it was starting just pile up, right? And it was only about a week or so, I said to myself, Nina, you have to start putting things and getting started. And another thing that this whole experience is teaching me is because oftentimes when we are overthinkers, or when we have control issues, or when we like are perfectionists, we think we have to have all the things we need in order to get started on something. In order to take action and move, we think we have to have every single thing that we need in order to get going on something. Or we and so what we'll do is we'll wait until we have all the things piled up, which has created more clutter. And then when all the things come, we're actually more overwhelmed, because now we feel like we have all the stuff in our space, and now we have to do everything at one time. And so for me, it just worked out better. When I started to see things piling up in the corner, I said, okay, well, let me just take out one thing at a time and start putting something and just doing what I can do with what I have. And so that's the other thing I wanted to say, was just use what you have and do what you can do with what you have. And you don't have to have every single thing, but it's about just getting started in the right direction. Getting started in the right direction, so that way you can actually see your project or whatever your thing is come to completion, in forming and creating some type of form and shape. That's what it is. It's about getting started so you can see your original vision take shape and take form. But if you don't get started, or if you, well, I shouldn't even say get started, because by you actually purchasing things and making a plan, that is you starting. But it's about taking the next steps required. And oftentimes we don't have everything we need in order to complete something right at the time when we think about it. And so that can be the most frustrating thing, because it's like, especially if you're impatient, you want things to happen when you want them, when you expect it to happen, on your timeline, how you want it to happen. And it doesn't work like that often. It really doesn't. And that's something that's really hard to accept, but it's true. So use what you have to get started. Don't let the clutter in your mind, the overthinking and the clutter, the thoughts clutter your brain to where you can't properly make decisions in order to maneuver. And don't let your space become cluttered to where you actually cannot think and maneuver as well, because it's a they're related. They're related. And it's, I'm learning too that about the whole it's easy to complete the purchase but not the project. It's also, I'm learning that during this process, it's teaching me that to give myself grace and to show myself compassion, but also to have it for others, because there's so many people that are suffering in silence. And I know that there's different things that can contribute to what I'm talking about, like people with ADHD and autism and all these and trauma and all these other things, right? But for those, what I'm speaking to right now is just the basic characteristics of like what it looks like to have like a hoarding tendency, to be an overthinker, to have a lot of clutter in your mind, clutter in your space, and to not be able to see things manifest. And one of the things that I'm also taking from this experience as I'm going through my grieving process and I'm actually reflecting and trying to figure out what this moment in my life is teaching me, it's to get started with what you to have compassion on people and not judge others so quickly because you don't really know what somebody else is going through, and to help myself the best that I can to keep my own space, my own physical space and mental space as clear as possible. And the other thing that I learned too with clearing out her space and her apartment was that it's very, very key to actually learn when to let things go and what needs to be let go of. Because what was also revealed to me was that we have a tendency to hoard other people's things that didn't even belong to us. Like they don't even belong to us, but we hold on to things for whatever reason, that may be. But it's about having the ability to decipher of what genuinely will bring joy into your life, what actually means something and what should be kept, or what you can release. And so my grandmother was in her 70s when she passed, but clearing out her clutter, it wasn't just hers, it was her mother's stuff that actually genuinely was sentimental and meant something and what have you. But there was so much other stuff that could have been given away or really thrown out, right? But then she also had like my father's stuff and some things that belonged to him. And so with our environment being a reflection of what's going on in our mental and our brain and what our thoughts and things like that, it would just it showed me that without having that ability to be able to know what to release and what to keep, it can be all the more easier for us to become overwhelmed and distracted and completely shut down, and we don't reach our goals and accomplish the things we set out to do. So become an inspector, I guess. Look around at your environment and start really reflecting on what things you have, why do you have them, why are things important to you, and maybe start writing that stuff down. And I encourage you to journal. Journaling has really helped me, but to clear out the mental clutter in my brain, to figure out why I think certain thoughts and what do certain things mean to me. But again, it's about clearing out the best that you can, clearing out the clutter as best as you can in order to make decisions and have clear thinking, because it's related. Your environment is related to like what's going on inside of your brain. It's related. And a lot of sadness and grief has come along with like having to go through that process with my grandmother. But it was also such a huge teaching moment for me, because I learned that I just learned so many things, and we can't really judge people and for where the from for where they are in life, and or we can't really, or for what their space is and what we think their space should be, and why do they have this. Like, we can't really judge people so harshly for where they are, because we don't really know what got them to that point. We don't really know. So this experience has taught me a lot, but finish what you started, so that way when you come to the end of your journey here in life, that you don't have as many I meant to's. And again, if I could hear my grandmother point out to me the things that she had in her apartment, I bought this because I meant to do this or whatever. But it's like, whatever that I meant to is for you. It's like, I meant to finish school. I meant to start school. I meant to write my book or finish my book. I meant to put up the home decor. I meant to donate these items that's been in the closet for 5 years. I meant to call a loved one, and or to go on that vacation. I meant to. It's like minimizing the I meant to's. So that way when you do come to the end of your journey, you don't have as many regrets about all the things that were left undone or never started. So yeah, it's taught me a lot, but you can finish what you start. Just do one thing at a time. You don't have to have everything all at one time. And sometimes you won't. But just do one thing at a time. And Miles Monroe and Jordan Page, I heard them say, like, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. So do what you can do, one thing at a time, and let the thing start to take shape and take form. So, yeah, finish what you start. I just thought I would share that. Thank you.